Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we're back for another brand new video. A brand new video during Old Firm week, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not just the regular Old Firm madness. Nah, it's an Old Firm Cup final. The smart thing today, if you're a YouTuber, podcaster, TikToker, Xer, and doesn't even sound right, it would be to really fly in and click in and cash in on the old clickbait that's gone around regarding this Old Firm Cup final. So it's probably a wee bit of a statement on myself that we're not actually sitting here doing that, because we're not going to follow the clickbait. We're actually going to talk about another topic that a lot of you guys actually requested last week. And as always, if you want to see a type of video, let me know in the comment section below, and about a week's time I'll get it up for you guys to watch. And that is why we are here. We are to talk about the players that I think should be moving on or should be kept, and then we'll obviously discuss at the same time what I think the club's actually going to do in terms of who they're going to keep and who they're going to get rid of, which I imagine will annoy a lot of people that's going to be watching today's video. So I know there's a cup final coming, and I know people say, oh, this is a bit negative to put it there, but in my personal opinion, whether we win at the weekend or not, it doesn't change the trajectory of a lot of these players' Rangers careers. They've made their bed. In a couple of weeks' time, they'll be lying in it. So there is a lot of players to talk about. I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet. I'm not going to dive too much into the overall details. I'm just going to give you my honest opinions to save us all a hell of a lot of time. And again, we're just going to be looking at the guys that's played maybe established minutes in the first team over this season or in previous seasons. So we're not really going to dive into the depths of the youth team, UEFCO and everything like that. We're not really going to go in there. We know where they actually are. We're going to start off with the goalie, defence, midfield, and the attack. And starting off with that goalkeeping position, I think we'll start with the one whose contract runs out the sooner then, shall we? And that's of course John McLaughlin, who's expected to leave the football club at the end of the season as his contract is expiring. And I feel like, yeah, it's probably time. Probably a forgotten servant at the football club as well, but his contract's ending this year, or the end of the season, I should say, and it's probably time to part ways with the big man. Because we then go to Robbie McCrory, whose contract expires at the end of the 2025 season, so next year. So basically we are entering the final year of Robbie McCrory's contract, and that brings a completely different conversation, because how long are we going to handcuff this guy to this football club? Again, he was the heir apparent. He looked very good when he started to take over, but then Jack Butland came in and just took it to a completely different level, and it's not been fair on the young laddie, because who gets close to Butland in the form of seeing this season? That's the real conversation. So I think now you go into the final year of their contract, you have to start to look, do you move on Robbie, do you promote maybe right up for the squad, maybe put him as the 3, maybe keep John McLaughlin as the 2, as it will cause Buttons to keep him and try and cash in on Robbie McCrory, as there is still a bit of conversation point about how talented and where his ceiling actually is. I think it's a very big sum, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Robbie McCrory leave this football club, whether it's a signing or a loan with the option or obligation to actually buy. What I think I can see happening, ladies and gentlemen, and as us locking Jack Butland in the building, that would be absolutely sensational. Moving on Robbie McCrory and giving either John McLaughlin another year extension just to keep ticking over that box in terms of Scottish registration, bit of experience there as well, or even promoting young Wright as well up into that spot. But again, I wouldn't be risking just going me Wright and Jack Butland moving in next season with another youth player. You've always got to have a sort of established player in the backup just in case the worst can actually happen. So that's why I could see a potential of a John McLaughlin extension, or going and signing someone of that ilk, bringing him in and keeping him as a number 2. I just feel like Robbie McCrory has gave a lot of years to this football club. He's never let us down. I don't think we drag it out to the last year, his contract extension. If there's offers, I think we'll sell them, but maybe there will only be, and he'll still be at number 2. And that leads us to Jack Butland. Keep him, no matter what. I'm telling you. If we sell Jack Butland this summer, I don't care if I'll have any hair left, boys. You know what I mean? You know, they normally say you either go grey or you go bald. I feel like I'm going beef at the prospect losing Jack Butland. But moving away, keep Jack Butland no matter what. He is our number 1 and he is our saviour. Let's get to the old defence then, shall we, as we have 2 players whose contract ends at the end of this season, one of them being Barisic, and I think that's the first one we'll look at right away, because yes, it's quite clear he is leaving this football club. Not only is it something I want, as I feel like he stayed far too long, a part of that current crop, or the crop that we had that just stayed on too long, or won a season too long, that should have been cashed in, they should have done this. He's right up there with the Moreloses, he's right up there with the Kents, in my personal opinion, of players that had value at one point but stayed on and stayed on and stayed on and left the club for absolutely zero. So Barisic will definitely be leaving. I think the last couple of weeks has showed that as well. And then we move on to Leon Balogun then, shall we? The other player whose contract is ending at the end of this season. And I'm probably going to surprise a couple here because you all know I really rate this lad. I mean, just this season, several times I've sat here and looked at you and says, why are we not playing our best defender, especially when everything was going wrong at the back. Balogun is our best defender that can actually defend, and this will take us to the next point, as I don't think he should be kept around in the building if it's going to cost a wee bit of moolah, in my personal opinion. And give me a couple seconds for that. The only reason I'm saying that, ladies and gentlemen, is after Balogun finally go back into the starting 11 and finally got this injury, finally go back in the starting 11 side to do this injury, and it just seems to be the recurring theme with the big man that you can't really rely on when you really need him when you're in the actual trenches. He seems to pick up an injury or knock. I absolutely love the guy. When I made this video a couple of years ago when Gio was here, I said this guy must be kept in and around the background. He's a great sub or rotational option to have if needed, but now I'm just almost tired of the same mentality of having to keep A, B, C, D, E, F and G because we've got 5 or 6 players in the team that we can't rely on, so we need backups, and then it's mere wages get spent on backups to the injury reserves to the backups. I think we need to pull all that away and try and build a squad that's actually fit and available for all games. I know that's easier said than done, and it's nothing on the big man. He's been a great servant and I rate that laddie so damn highly, but for me, I'm tired of the constant injuries. I'm tired of the same cycle. I'm wanting a change, and I think we move on for Leon. So that's them in order in terms of their contract expiring, but now I'm going to mix it up a little bit because I want to just focus in on the left back, and that's going to be Ridvan Yilmaz, who out of all our defenders has the longest remaining time left on their contract, as his doesn't expire to 2027. And again, I'm probably going to surprise a lot of people here because it's another player I rate, and again I say when he's actually able to play he is our best left back, but again you are comparing him I should say, to Barisic. How high is that bar to actually be? Well, if Ridvan's standing over it, it might just tell you that in all aspects. But honestly, I really like Ridvan, what he's able to do in the park, just his tenaciousness, the way he goes about, gets stuck in, tries is a wee bit different. It's not just back pass after safe possession, it's driving, and I like that aspect. And it's no surprise to me our best run of football this season came when he was back in the starting 11, and it dissipated instantly the second he got injured and fell away. But again, we're talking about this. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about another good player that when he plays your team is absolutely great, but he's yet another player that's been just devastated by injury after injury after injury, and I'm so sick of Defi looking good, and then it all just crumbles away because our team's built on toothpicks that can't handle the weight of an entire season. I know it sounds harsh, I'm never judging these players on injuries, it's a really cruel game, but it's cruel watching the same mistakes happen year upon year upon year. I'm sick to death of having 5-6 good players when they play. We're great, but they can't play more than 20 games. I think there is value in there. He's protected with his contract, and there's already nibbles, there are already bites, and what he's shown on the park, he's a very good left back, and I think not only would I sell him this summer, but I think Rangers will sell him this summer and use that value and the money for Ridvan to inject it in to the squad. So we're talking about getting rid of our 2 left backs at the football club and possibly bringing in the likes of Hefty, or Big Jeff as we call him lovingly right here on the channel. But it's going to be a big position to film this summer, and it's on the big man himself. So that's the left back position discussed. So let's move on to the centre back. Now we've already talked about Leon. Let's go ahead and talk about another Leon then, shall we, whose contract expires in the 2026 season after we gave him a long-term extension after interest and scouts and people watching him from Newcastle United. It is none other than Leon King, and I still stand by what I said in my last Hearts video. I'm not sure if Leon King is physically going to be able to give us what we need in terms of our centre half, because we know what we face 99.9% of the season. It's one big bully up front, it's long balls to him all the time, long balls up to him, and we've just had defenders and built teams to play nice stuff, built teams to play European football, forgetting about the most important thing for this football club, and that is winning the league, and I think that goes right up to the very top. Everyone's distracted by all the other bright lights and all the European magic and all this and all this. What matters the most and what used to matter the most as football club was winning trophies and titles, and that was building a team for your domestic league. And I like Leon King again and again. It's nothing ever personal towards the laddie, but I'm not sure if he's physically able to get up there and do that. You know what I mean? We're looking at players like Big Cordoba, who's going to be coming in for us. A big bully can get up there and at least attack people and physical and show a wee bit of son. Leon King's not quite the physical strength of the Bassies, the Sterlings, the Cordobas, and he's not obviously the aerial threat either as well. So I'm not sure where he fits going forward in my personal opinion, unless we are moving him into that centre defensive midfielder role where he's played and trained for at the youth level. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens Leon King. What I think will happen to him this summer is possibility of a loan. He's been decimated by injuries again this season. He's under a long term. His ceiling's clearly very high, so I think a loan is on the cards for King. But with what I'm about to talk about for the other centre-halves, he'll probably be kept in around this football club again to tick the Scottish registration box and be a bit of depth to the centre-back level, because we've talked about Balogun leaving. I want to then talk about Ben Davies then, shall we? A guy, for me, again, that's been overly criticised, overly hated, and just really targeted by a lot of people since he came in the door, because again, he wasn't what we wanted at that point. He was more of the same. He was a ball playing defender, did this like a Leon King. He wasn't big, he wasn't physical, he wouldn't get up there and dominate, and when he's up against these big long ball merchants and he's just getting flung around like a plastic bag. It's the same mistake we've had. So when we signed them for all that money, we never went and got a bully. We were all instantly like, what are we doing? And that feeling sort of remained for a lot of people when they look at Ben Davies. But for me, he's actually not made too many mistakes. Obviously the glaring one versus Celtic, but if you look overall, I think he's been very steady and very consistent when he was given a chance to play. But again, he's another one who spent a lot of money on, and he's another one that struggled with injuries. There's a real recurring theme in this Rangers team, and I just want rid of it, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm honest with you. And I rate Ben Davies, but if there was a sniff, if there's an offer, if there's someone coming in to the building, I think you move him on. His contract ends in 2026, so it's not as if we can rip it up, and I wouldn't suggest ripping up. I'd rather keep him at the club, but I'm sure he'd be one the Rangers team, Phil and Big Cop, is trying to move on to get some money. Next up, before we get to CB number one, it is of course John Souttar, who's a lot of people's CB number ones these days, and I know those people are going to be watching today's video if they're ready to shout at me and call me for this and this, because I get overly attacked by the stuff that I say, but saying, oh, you didn't like him, oh, it's personal, or no, it's not. I really like the lad. I've met him at the training. He's a great guy, ladies and gentlemen, but I just feel like I have to talk about him because the same way that people talk about Ben Davies and the Connor Goldsons and everything like that, and they just, because of the favouritism, ignore the mistakes that Souttar's got in his game. He's glaring mistakes that he makes in every game, I should say. So I try and treat everybody fairly and give them all the criticism that they've deserved, especially this season. But again, to surprise a lot of people watching, because they'd have had this one earmarked for me when you're expecting me to say sell, I'd actually keep John Souttar. One, it's very important for the Scottish registration, not only in terms of domestic leagues, but obviously in European football. And two, it's very important that we get another Scottish registration on for European football and domestic league. But in all seriousness, I would actually keep him for more reasons than just that. He's big, he's powerful, he can at least put himself about, and I think maybe, just maybe, it'll eventually drop for him and he'll tidy up the silly mistakes. He'll stop looking like Bambi, oh nice, whenever there's a ball crossed into the box. There is something there, and I think from a dressing room presence, what he says and how he calls it out could be very interesting to see. But again, just needs to get away for the old injury bug. But where he tips the likes of Ben Davies for me is the fact that he ticks a very important box for his football club, and that is genuinely that Scottish registration. So I would keep John Souttar there. I didn't hate him. YouTube comment section. Now let's get to CB number one then, shall we? Mr. Connor Goldson, the rock that 55 was built upon, and I've no forgot all that, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people have, and that's maybe a wee symbolisation of where we are as a generation. Everyone's on TikTok, everyone's on YouTube Shorts, everyone's on Instagram Reels, 7 seconds, 10 seconds, that's what it is. So the attention span's gone. That's what we are programmed to just get into our actual brain, so we forget how important people have been or what they've done for us over the last couple couple of years, it's just all recency bias, and unfortunately for a lot of Goldson's hard work, it's forgotten and overlooked because again, he has been poor this season. I don't know if it was because of the injury when he came back from it this season. I know he's had some horrible personal stuff happening to him off the park, which we're not going to go into here. We talk about the football here, and that's all we will ever talk about. Nothing's ever personal, nothing's ever attacking individuals. He has had some hard news, so I don't know if that's affected him or not, or the fact, ladies and gentlemen, he's played a hell of a lot of games for us over the years. You look at it, Mr. Ironman, Mr. Consistency, 200 games, right through up to there, and he's had to do a hell of a lot of work down that right hand side if we're actually being fair. I know we all love Tavernier, but it was a hard job for Goldson all the years protecting the right back and right centre back spot. If we can have a genuine conversation, if you can take your recency frustration, your recency bias off the cards, he's done a hell of a lot of running and a hell of a lot of games in such a short period of time for his football club. Goldson's played more games than some of our heroes ever did for Rangers, ladies and gentlemen. A lot more actual games, and they were at the club a lot longer than actual Goldson. So maybe, just maybe, it's Mother Nature taking its time. But even I, a massive defender of Connor Goldson, someone that appreciates what he's done for his football club, he's just looked really bad this year, and I just really didn't like actually saying that, but I don't know if his legs are gone or whatever. It's just no work. So there's a big decision to make. However, his contract, like a lot of the other defenders, doesn't end till 2026. There's a lot of time on there now. You're relying on a football club coming in and buying him. Are we talking about Saudi? Are we praying that Gerrard comes and does it and gives us a wee bit of money? Maybe, ladies and gentlemen. But at his age, with the length that he's done, it's not as if we can rip up the actual contract. He is on some moolah, and again, he's been an important player for this football club, whether you like him or not. So it's going to be a very interesting summer for Connor Goldson. Keep him at the football club, no surprise, if he is willing to take a reduced rate in terms of his actual wages, again, just to restructure it in terms of the football club. But again, he signed the contract, it's their job. Would you take a pay cut? Probably no, ladies and gentlemen. So it's going to be a very interesting summer for Connor Goldson. But if somebody came in for him, I can see the club actually accepting it. And that pains me to say, but I would understand it and accept the decision if we move on. For Goldson, it's probably the best one, but again, because he is under contract, we're relying on someone coming and bidding for the big man. But it leads us with the second last defender, but a player that I feel like we need to mention as he's so heavily mirrored with the last player we're going to talk about. We're going to start off with Tavernier and we're going to look at Sterling. But let's narrow in on the skip dog then, shall we? Because this is going to be a hotly debated part in the comment section below. And I really hope you let me know some of the players you would like to keep and some of them you wouldn't, down in the comment section below, because it's all about that conversation. And I know, and I've really thought about it, I've tried to take my bias away, because even I'm biased as well, ladies and gentlemen. It is actually happening. We're all programmed that way. I've really tried to take a step back and look at everything, and I know Tavernier's been a glaring weakness defensively this season. I know all a player with pace needs to do is stand him up, stop up, and then run, because he's not got the pace acceleration. It happens every single time, the Maeda and everything. And it's not even just Maeda who's one of the fastest players in the league. It's happening with everybody these days. I know defensively he is not going and he is losing those legs in terms of acceleration, but you just look at his output. Can we really afford to lose such an attacking threat in there? And it might be one of these positions. It might be time, ladies and gentlemen, to say, right, if Tavernier's staying at this football club, let's move him to right mid. Let's move him into the middle of the park. Let's do a Fernando Rickson, for instance. Let's move him somewhere. I just don't think we can be overly successful as a football club with him as our first choice right back going in to next season. And I really hate that I'm looking you in the eyes and saying that, because I really appreciate everything this laddie's done. Just like Connor Goldson, the memories that this man has given me, the stats and the statistics will never be seen again, and we'll never appreciate until he is actually gone. But defensively, you know what I mean? Using an old saying from the NFL, if you know this one, defence wins championship. There's a reason we're not winning league titles. When we did win 55, what was our defence? It was the best in the UK. We're just not there. We've got too many glaring weaknesses, and I just don't think Tavernier defensively can carry us to where we need to go, as he's just going to get older now and everything like that. So maybe it's the midfield, maybe it's out on the right, but even in the right, ladies and gentlemen, you see how he's getting played these days. This is why I'm talking about the midfield, because think of when we play attack, is Tavernier getting down the right hand side and whipping balls in all the time? No. I can think of a couple incidences that he's done that this season, but he's not got the legs to do that. So Clements been protecting him, dropping him in to the middle of the park. He's playing edge, and that's actually hurt us as a team, because Ross McCausland, Seema, Silva, Matondo, Scott Wright, none of them can cross an actual football. Our best crossers of the ball was Barisic and Tavernier, and now we're at a position where we can't rely on Barisic to play because everywhere else in his game is so weak. And we're getting to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, with Tavernier that defensively he's becoming a glaring weakness and he's losing every 1v1 battle, and that's horrible to say, but maybe going into this season, move him up one to the midfield, who still have some of the instincts that he's actually had. He's playing in that role. If you watch Rangers play, I don't care what they line up on paper, he's been playing midfield for a lot of this game. He just gets required to actually run back. I think you can maybe make a sacrifice there, put him in there and keep him another year. At least that's what I do, ladies and gentlemen, because to me, looking you right in the eyes right now, despite my love for that man Tavernier, I think defensively and as a team we'd be better next season starting with Dujon Sterling at right back. So that answers your two questions. I'd keep Tavernier, but I'd be very scared if he's a natural starting right back next year, and I would keep Dujon Sterling no matter what. So in short, in terms of the defence, ladies and gentlemen, I'd get rid of pretty much everyone besides Tavernier, Big Suter and our boy Dujon Sterling. The rest I'd be fine with, and that might seem harsh, but if you watch Rangers for at least a second this season, you understand why I've said that. Now moving on to the midfield, and it feels quite funny to say this because the midfield's going to take ages, ladies and gentlemen, because on paper we've got so many midfielders at this football club, which is ironic because when you look at actual games that we play, it's the same boys that's relied on time after time because everyone else is always injured or in and out, shaking it all about. And this has been a real problem. We talk about the defence wins championships, but midfields win old firms, in my personal opinion. That's the battleground, that's where you go to the trenches, and that's where you assert your dominances in the rivalry games. And when we went on a good run under Gerrard, that's what he built. He built a midfield that was dominating Celtic's midfields, and now we've got a Celtic midfield that's dominating us each and every single time. Close, no cigar, red card, make the excuses if you want. The midfield is where the battle is won, and the midfield of Rangers is incredibly weak in terms of players that's available. But I'm going to start with the centre midfielder, and then we'll get to some wingers, etc., and go through there, or attacking midfielders as well. I'm going to start off with the most controversial one right away, John Lundstram, who at one point looked like he was the keys to the Clements machine. That's what we were talking about. He was driving the vehicle, he was inserting himself. Then it just does what it unfortunately does with Lundstram and just drops off a cliff, and it just completely regresses into a level that's absolutely slow and lethargic, and so does they end up being the Rangers play. That's the philosophy, that's been the style, that is the cycle, up, down, up, down. It's like being on the big one at Old Blackpool, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm probably going to say something, again, for me, I would move away from John Lundstram because, again, it's great when it's up there, but by God is it painful when it's down there. And the old firm probably would have been the end if you're looking at the likes of Walter Smiths and everything like that. Their mentalities, the stamping that down, making sure none of that can ever go again. But football's changed so much over the years. The players are far too pampered. The players have far too much power. They've got more power than the manager, and I think we've seen that over the last couple of years. And where I would personally move away for John Lundstram, I'm going to say something that's going to be against everything you've read on Twitter. I think we'll see John Lundstram sign an extension this season, ladies and gentlemen. I've just got that feeling in the pit of my stomach. Call it what you will. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm preparing you all right now. I wouldn't be surprised if John Lundstram stays at this football club going in to next season, so stay tuned to that one. But moving away from there, let's continue with the centre mid discussion. Again, we've got our man Ryan Jack, a guy that I rate so damn highly, a guy that's always been great with me, and a guy that's helped with a lot of charity events and that I've put up. I rate this laddie to the very highest, and again, he's likes of the Red Vans and everything. When they're on the park, the likes of Ballagans, when they're on the park, we are a better team. We just are. But unfortunately this season, it's been probably the worst it's ever been in terms of injuries. He picked up an injury playing 11 minutes with Scotland, and ever since then, it's just been downhill. Came back for the Benfica game, it's been downhill, and it's another thing where Clements talking about we're having to try and get to the depths of it, we're trying to have a look at it. His contract obviously ends this season, just like John Lundstrom, but where I think we'll give John Lundstrom a new deal, I don't think we'll give Ryan Jack a new deal, ladies and gentlemen, as again, he just can't be called upon it enough. And Clement keeps talking about clearing that and wanting reliability. Well, I think if you look at Lunny and you look at Jack, whether which one you rate better, I know for me Jack was a better player than Lunny. Lunny at least is available, and I see that's where the club is gone, unfortunately, and I see Jacko's time being up. But moving away from the 2024s, let's move away and talk about others. We've obviously got an obligation to buy with Diamande. He'll be a permanent Rangers player this season, so I think that's been made clear. The club want Diamande, so we don't need to really get into the nooks and crannies of that. But instead, let's move up a little one. Let's bump up one then, shall we, and talk about our boy Raskin, who actually has one of the longest contracts at the football club at 2027, because again, he looked like such an important piece. He looked like such a staple of this Rangers team. But ever since Clements came in, who's also Belgian, we were all expecting it to hit like this and take off. He's never been seen. Now, he did have a very serious injury. He did come back and play pretty poorly in the 2-1 loss to Motherwell at Ibrox, and for me, he was the only one that was punished from that game, when there was a lot of other players that played as poorly as him, or even poorer, in my opinion. It was only really Raskin that was flung to the Nether realm, and I'm not really sure what actually happened there, if something was said behind the scenes. Again, we just have to talk about it from an outsider's perspective, but I rate Raskin because if he can get onto his day, he's a very good player, but we didn't see it enough. But he is heavily under contract in 2027, so I think it's another situation, ladies and gentlemen, that we're relying on a team coming in and bidding. But what I will say is, I think if a team bids anything for Raskin, he will be moved on, so do that with what you will, ladies and gentlemen. It's all reliant on a team actually coming for him. And I think as we talked about Raskin, let's go ahead and talk about Cantwell then, shall we? The best pals in the old locker room, which is probably why Raskin's been punished, because I get the feeling that Clement hates Todd Cantwell. Does anyone else get that vibe? And I like Cantwell. I would keep Cantwell. I'd make Cantwell my number 10, whether you like him or not. Our best run of football again was with him leading the line. 6 goal contributions in the 8 games. He was absolutely vital. Way to Easter Road, way to here, carrying us in games, and he was playing really damn well. Then he got injured, and then he came back, and it's never been quite like that. I know he's had a bit of an up and down relationship with Phil Clement, but I still rate him as a player. If it was up to me, I would keep Todd Cantwell. If it was up to me, he'd be my number 10. But I'm looking you in the eyes right now and saying, I think as a club, we will be moving on from Cantwell this summer. And I think this game on the weekend is the last we'll see of Todd Cantwell, as again, he will have a wee bit of value, and I think he will be cashed in on. And I feel like as we talked about Cantwell, it's time to talk about loans, because they're always rotated, they're always looked at, and they're always discussed on the same ends. And I know there's a lot of people in this comment section that rates Tom Lawrence right up here, and you absolutely love him. I rated him as a player as well until I seen him in the title running, where I needed some balls and I needed some drive, and I saw nothing for him, and I saw 2 of the worst midfield displays I've ever seen versus Old Firm. The one at Ibrox was almost unforgivable in my opinion. The nonchalant attitude, the this, the this. It was dreadful, and then he got the opportunity to do it again at Parkhead despite Cantwell playing well. It's just a decision I'll not make, but it all comes into this computer analytics stuff now. Lawrence stays in his role, Lawrence stays in the shape, Lawrence stays in his role, so that protects the expected goals, that expects this and expects this. Cantwell goes everywhere trying to get involved in the game and tries to find space. That doesn't work for us, and I think there will be an option of moving Cantwell on and keeping Tom Lawrence. But for me, not only is the injury history significantly worse than Todd Cantwell's, but also I just think as a player he's not as impactful as Todd Cantwell in my personal opinion. I feel like we're going to get this one really wrong this summer. Lawrence's contract ends in 2025. I think he will be kept into next season, but for me, if it was up to me, I'd move Lawrence on and keep Cantwell, not the other way about, but that's the way I think the club's gonna go. The next couple I don't think is very controversial at all. I think we're looking at Kieran Dowell again to 2026. That's a hell of a long deal to give someone with that badly of an injury history, but we thought he'd be an important squad player and be available to play A, B and C. He's not really been able to do that. Maybe more known for a career mode right here on the channel than what he's actually been able to do on the park, which is a bit of a statement in itself, but that's just been his case Back for 1 game, out for 3 months. Back for 1. He's had 3 major injuries in his first season at this football club. And again, he has got to be one you look at. But with such a long contract, with how poorly we've built this squad and handed out years and years and years, we've handcuffed ourselves to players that can't play a lot of games. And I feel like he's going to be one that's going to be lingering around in the background. Is who's going to come in and pay the wages that we're paying them and take that contract off our hands. I would get rid of him, but you're not going to be able to do that, ladies and gentlemen. So I expect Dill to be here next year. And then we get to that point where we start looking at wingers and it comes that conversation. Are wingers midfielders or wingers attackers? You can let me know how you feel in the comment section below. But I'm going to mention a couple before we move to more of the attacking wingers in my personal opinion. Talk about Ross McCausland. Obviously signed a long-term deal this summer. I think he's going to be a very important player. Ticks that box for homegrown and all that as well. I don't see him being a starter next season when we get the players that we maybe necessarily need and want. But in terms of the bench coming off, he's a young laddie that's learning his game, and again ticks a very important box. So I'll keep that one short. I'd keep Ross McCausland. Moving on to Scotty Wright, whose contract ends in 2025. People, that's right, we're entering the final year of Scotty Wright's contract. We're not quite out of it yet, but for me, he would be one that does need to be moved on, but he would be one I can see getting kept because he's on buttons. He ticks that box, and again, he is capable of the magic, 1 out of every 15 games, if you will. But I would love, and I didn't mean this personal, just to move on for the likes of that, because these players, them like that, are just so, they flatter to deceive so much, and I just feel like it spreads in the squad, the inconsistency. It's alright, we'll be alright on our day, we're alright on our day. No, we need consistency if we want to win things, and we just can't rely on Scotty Wright. So I would like something to be done. Michael Beale tried his best last summer, sent him to Turkey twice, troops, and I feel like it's going to be another aspect where Clements just nudging him out the door and trying to shut him out in terms of Auchenhowie. So I find like the club will get rid of him, and I feel like that is the correct decision. On the next one's going to be Rabbi Matondo, someone who had a bit of a redemption arc, is someone I rate really highly. But again, sorry if you've heard me say this before, he's another one that struggled with injuries all the time. I'm sorry if this is boring you, but I think it's important to look at this context of the video, how many players we have that are absolutely riddled with injuries. And I'm talking about keeping Sterling, who's also been riddled with injuries this season, but considering it's his first season and everything like that, and he's getting played to play everywhere and he's not getting consistency, that might be playing a part because he's getting asked to do too much. If he's maybe just playing right back, I think we could get more out of the legs of Dujon Sterling. But the rest, man, oh my god, it's just injury after injury. And I rate Rabbi Matondo very highly, and I think he's a very dangerous player, but can he play more than 2 games a month anymore? He gets 1 kick, he's gone. 1 kick, he's gone. Capable of the sublime, but even more capable of the mundane, and that's what we've seen more times than not in terms of Rabbi Matondo, and he'd be another one. Now that he's got the hype of the goal, he's got the big goal and the big game and everything like that, people are starting to look at him. Anything comes in, you get rid of Rabbi Matondo, in my personal opinion. And I'm going to get attacked by the Welsh because the Welsh are going to be saying, you're just wanting to get rid of them all. Well, unfortunately, they've not been good enough or consistent enough. And that is it in terms of the old midfield. A lot of them needing ripped up again, if you look at the levels. And as we move on to the attack, I believe we're keeping just 8 of the 18 players available so far, of the 18 players that we've discussed, not including the goalkeepers. Obviously, we're just talking about outfield players, and that seems about right. It might seem harsh to a lot of people, but I feel like we need a major revamp into this squad, and I think we've shown that so far. But anyway, moving on to the last couple then, shall we, is of course into the attack. And I think I'm going to start off with a couple of the loans and get rid of them quickly. Fabio Silva, no, I wouldn't keep under any circumstances, even if you offered me for free. I would keep Sima, ladies and gentlemen, I really would, but I just don't see it being available. I feel like Rangers will try to pursue that and try to bring him back in, whether it be another loan or anything like that, maybe a loan with an obligation to buy or an option to buy, but I just don't see it being feasible on that one, so I don't see him actually coming back. Oscar Cortez is the interesting one because Clement and Big Cop, if you will, really like the laddie and rate him very highly, and he looked good for what we actually saw him in, so I would like to see him brought in to this football club, and he's one out of the 3. Talk about loanees that I can see coming back next season, in my personal opinion. Would love it to be 2, would love it to be Sima as well, but I just not sure about that one, as he's still expected to go for a lot of money. But Oscar Cortez is one I can see coming back to this football club. So 1 out of 3 loan, ain't bad. Speaking of loans, however, that takes us to Sam Lammers, who's just scored his 9th goal in 10 games over in Dutch football. Now, we made an entire video on Sam Lammers, so if you want to go and see that, I can let it down there, and I break down everything, the good, the bad, and the Sam Lammers. But for me, he's done well enough. He's going to get us some money. We're somehow going to make a profit on him, and by God, that's made us all look like geniuses. I wish him nothing but the best in Dutch football. He's clearly a player that suits that league. I'm not going to get into the excuses of why I never made it here. Go and check the video if you want me to discuss all that. But let's turn on to the 5th player, then shall we? Or 4th player, then shall we? That is going to be none other than Kemar Roof, the man who scored the best goal I've seen in a Rangers shirt ever, in my personal opinion. A man that was vital in the 55th season, that scored so many great goals, that scored so many big moments, and had a great goal to game ratio. But that's probably a wee bit of indication of the fact that he barely played as well. He was also robbed a Puskas award, by the way. Really should have won it. But in terms of a player, great servant. Wish him nothing but the best. Just another one whose body was betrayed by injuries. But again, would he have been here if he wasn't so injury prone? I really didn't think so, ladies and gentlemen. He'd have still been at Leeds. He would have been in the Premier League, high championship side. I can look at you in the eyes and saying that. The only reason a player like that was in Scottish football at that part of his career was because he was so unavailable for so much, and we obviously saw the good and the nasty side of that as we were robbed so much of watching him play for Rangers. But I wish him nothing but the best, but I don't see him coming back at all. So that's everybody so far that we've spoken about, and only one I see being at the football club next season. But that changes as we go to Cyril Dessers, the top goal scorer in terms of the attackers, not named Tavernier in this football club. And I don't know where I am with Dessers. I like him. I really do. And again, it is his first season. Maybe it'll click in the second one. But I feel like in terms of hard work and earning it, he's deserved a second crack at the whip. For me, maybe no as the out-and-out number 9 or the clinical number 9. He'll never probably be that. But in terms of swapping around like Walter used today, having someone that was maybe good for this league, and then having the European powerhouse that can carry us, the Darshevils, the Cousins, playing them away in European days. Desser's great at that. That's what he's got in his locker, but it's just that clinical edge that he's no going to go. I think if you partner him with a clinical number 9, you're looking at that as a dirty double as a number 2. So for me, I would keep Dessers despite what everyone's going to be saying in the comment section below. And again, Danilo is the other forward that's on our list, and he's an interesting one as he had some good moments. Then he started to look a wee bit iffy. Then he obviously got his second major injury of the season, as my voice is nearly gone. I'm still recovering for Ellen Road. I've done a lot of shouting, no spoilers about the actual result. But aye, he's another one that looked good. He's going to need to get a second season in his belt. He's going to have an entire pre-season to work on and come back to this football club fully fit, which we haven't yet seen of Danilo. So I would keep Danilo. I would keep Dessers. I would keep Oscar Cortez. I would love to keep Sima, but I didn't see it happening. But that's it in terms of the old attack. And that right there leads us to the end of the old video now of the 25 player list that we've spoken about in terms of outfielders, not including the goalies. I would keep just 11 of them, and that's the type of drastic action I believe this football club needs if we're going to be moving on to try to be as successful. We need to try and clear out, we need to try and move on, we need to try and cash in where cash can be brought in to this football club and try and go out and bring others. I think there is some good players in there, I think there's enough to build upon, but we just need reliability. We need to get rid of the snobbiness. We need to start looking into our game, start cherry picking some talent and get us back to the team we used to look like when we were winning some trophies. What about you? Let me know your opinions. Let me know your number. I'd keep 11 of those 25. Obviously, it's not going to be up to me. It will be a lot higher than that in terms of what's actually happening. It'll probably be 18, 19 if we're being honest. But if it was up to you, I'd keep 11 of the 25. What about you? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down there in the comment section below. And as again, any other requests in terms of videos, let it down in the comments and I'll give it to you this summer. Until then, I've been Siege over 92. Enjoy your rest of your week before it comes Old Firm Cup final day. All the best and bye-bye.